The silver ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. Its smooth hull reflected the light of distant stars as it approached the blue and green planet that humans called Earth. Inside the ship, Commander Veltar checked his instruments one more time. His long, thin fingers moved across the control panel with practiced ease. His species, the Zephyrians, had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, but this mission felt different. Veltar's large, dark eyes studied the readings from Earth. The planet was what his people called a death world, a place where life had to fight constantly just to survive. Most planets in the galaxy were gentle places where evolution moved slowly and peacefully. But Earth was different. The weather changed quickly and violently. The ground shook and split open. Water fell from the sky in storms that could destroy entire cities. Yet somehow intelligent life had grown there. The Galactic Council had been watching Earth for many years. They had listened to human radio signals and television broadcasts. They had seen movies about human heroes and documentaries about human science. From what they could tell, humans seemed ready to join the peaceful community of galactic civilization. The humans appeared to value cooperation, learning, and artistic expression. Their entertainment showed themes of friendship, love, and working together to solve problems. Veltar felt excited about this first contact. His species had helped many younger races join the galactic community. It was always a wonderful moment when a new species took its first steps into the larger universe. The process was usually simple. The advanced species would share their knowledge of medicine, technology, and peaceful living. In return, the new species would add their own unique culture and perspective to galactic society. The ship's communication officer, a female Zephyrian named Kessera, turned to face Veltar. Her movements were graceful and smooth, like those of a dancer. All Zephyrians moved this way because their homeworld had low gravity and no dangerous predators. Violence was almost unknown in their society. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the human orbital station," Kessera said. Her voice was soft and musical. "They are welcoming us and offering to meet in their station rather than on their planet's surface." Veltar nodded with approval. This was exactly the kind of thoughtful behavior he expected from a species ready for galactic citizenship. The humans were being careful and respectful. They understood that alien visitors might not be comfortable on their planet's surface right away. The human orbital station was impressive for such a young species. It spun slowly in space, creating artificial gravity through rotation. The design was practical but showed artistic touches that pleased Veltar's aesthetic sense. When their ship docked, he felt a moment of nervousness. This was always the most important part of first contact, the actual meeting between species. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. 3 humans stood waiting in the corridor beyond. Veltar had seen humans in their broadcasts, but meeting them in person was different. They were shorter and more solid than Zephyrians, with thick bones and heavy muscles. Their movements seemed controlled and purposeful. Even when they smiled, there was something intense about their eyes. The lead human stepped forward. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and a warm smile. "Welcome to Earth's orbital station," she said. "I am Ambassador Sarah Chen. We are honored to meet you." Veltar relaxed. The human's words and manner were exactly what he had hoped for. "I am Commander Veltar of the Galactic Council," he replied. "We bring greetings from the peaceful species of our galaxy." The humans led them to a meeting room with large windows looking out at Earth. The planet turned slowly below them, showing vast oceans and green continents. Ambassador Chen explained that they had prepared presentations about human culture, history, and achievements. She seemed eager to learn about galactic civilization and to share humanity's own story. Dr. James Morrison, a tall man with kind eyes, gave the first presentation about human science and technology. He spoke about their space program, their medical advances, and their efforts to understand the universe. Veltar was impressed by human curiosity and their rapid technological development. For such a young species, they had accomplished remarkable things. The third human was General Patricia Hayes, a woman with short gray hair and a confident manner. She would later speak about human security and defense, she explained. Veltar appreciated their openness. Most species were shy about discussing their military capabilities during first contact. The fact that humans were willing to be transparent suggested they had nothing to hide. During their first meal together, the humans served food from many different cultures on their planet. They explained that Earth had many different groups of humans, each with their own traditions and ways of life. This diversity impressed Veltar's team. Most species in the galaxy were much more uniform in their cultures. Ambassador Chen asked many questions about the Galactic Council and how new species were integrated into galactic society. She seemed particularly interested in trade opportunities and cultural exchange programs. The humans talked about sharing their music, art, and literature with other species. They wanted to learn about alien philosophy, science, and history. As the day progressed, Veltar felt more and more confident that this first contact would be successful. The humans showed all the qualities that made for good galactic citizens. They were curious, cooperative, and peaceful. They valued knowledge and seemed genuinely interested in making friends with other species. The humans even had translation devices ready, showing they had been preparing for this moment for years. Their technology was primitive compared to galactic standards, but it showed impressive ingenuity. Veltar made mental notes about which galactic technologies might be most helpful to share with humanity. That evening, as Veltar looked out at Earth spinning below, he felt satisfied with the day's progress. The planet looked beautiful and alive, with swirling clouds and bright city lights on the dark side. It was hard to believe that such a lovely world could be as dangerous as the classification suggested. Kessera joined him at the observation window. "They seem very pleasant," she said. "Much more civilized than we expected from a Deathworld species." Veltar agreed. Their environment may be harsh, but they have clearly learned to work together and build a peaceful society. I think they will make excellent additions to the galactic community. The Zephyrian team spent the night aboard the human station. The humans had prepared comfortable quarters and made sure their alien guests had everything they needed. Such hospitality was another good sign. Species that cared for visitors usually cared for their neighbors as well. As Veltar settled in for sleep, he felt excited about the days ahead. Tomorrow, the humans would begin sharing their history and culture in more detail. It would be fascinating to learn how intelligence had developed on such a challenging world. He expected to hear inspiring stories of cooperation and perseverance in the face of natural disasters. The commander had participated in dozens of first contact missions, but there was always something special about welcoming a new species into the galactic family. Each species brought unique gifts, new perspectives, new art, new ways of thinking about old problems. He wondered what special contributions humanity would make to galactic civilization. Outside the station, Earth continued its ancient rotation. On the surface below, humans went about their daily lives, unaware that their species stood on the threshold of joining something much larger than themselves. Soon, if all went well, humanity would take its place among the stars alongside the other peaceful peoples of the galaxy. The second day of meetings began with breakfast in the station's main dining area. Veltar enjoyed the human custom of sharing meals while conducting business. It felt friendly and civilized. Ambassador Chen had arranged for Dr. Elizabeth Ward, Earth's leading historian, to present an overview of human development and culture. Dr. Ward was an older woman with silver hair and intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She smiled warmly as she activated a large display screen. "We thought you might like to understand how humanity developed over time," she said. "Our history shows how we learned to work together and build the civilization you see today." Veltar and his team settled comfortably in their chairs. This was always one of the most interesting parts of first contact. Every species had a unique story of how they had grown from primitive beginnings to spacefaring civilization. These stories often revealed the core values and characteristics that would shape how the species fit into galactic society. Human civilization began about 12,000 years ago, Dr. Ward explained, when we learned to grow crops and domesticate animals. Before that, we lived in small groups, hunting and gathering food. The first images showed early human settlements. Veltar noticed immediately that even these ancient communities were surrounded by walls and defensive structures. This seemed unusual, but perhaps it was protection against dangerous animals on their death world. As our populations grew, we formed larger groups and eventually cities and nations. Dr. Ward continued. This led to competition for resources and territory. Next series of images showed what Dr. Ward called ancient warfare. Veltar felt his first stirring of unease as he looked at pictures of humans in metal armor, carrying sharp weapons. The images showed large groups of humans fighting against other large groups of humans. Kesra leaned forward in her chair. Excuse me, Dr. Ward, but could you explain these images? It appears humans were fighting against other humans? Dr. Ward nodded matter-of-factly. Oh yes, warfare has been a constant throughout human history. Different groups competed for land, resources, trade routes, and political control. Some of our greatest civilizations were built through military conquest. She clicked to the next slide, which showed a map covered in colored arrows. This shows the expansion of the Roman Empire. At its height, it controlled most of Europe and parts of Africa and Asia. Roman legions conquered dozens of different peoples and cultures. Veltar felt confused. In galactic civilization, when resources became scarce, species learned to share or find new solutions. The idea of one group taking resources from another by force was difficult to understand. How many individuals were involved in these conflicts? He asked. The Roman legions numbered in the hundreds of thousands, Dr. Ward replied. And that was just one empire. There were many others throughout history, each with their own military forces. The presentation moved forward through human history. Dr. Ward showed them the medieval period, with its knights and castles and constant warfare between kingdoms. She explained the Crusades, where hundreds of thousands of humans traveled across continents to fight for control of religious sites. She showed them the Mongol Empire, which conquered the largest land area in human history through military might. With each new era, Veltar's discomfort grew. The scale of human conflict was unlike anything he had ever heard of. When the presentation reached what humans called the gunpowder age, the images became even more disturbing. Cannons destroyed castle walls. Ships armed with dozens of guns fought battles on the oceans. Humans had turned their impressive creativity toward making more efficient weapons. The invention of gunpowder changed everything, Dr. Ward explained cheerfully. Suddenly, individual soldiers could defeat armored knights. It democratized warfare and led to the rise of nation-states with professional armies. Kesra's usually musical voice sounded strained. How many humans died in these conflicts? Dr. Ward paused to think. It's hard to say exactly. Record-keeping was poor in earlier periods, but major conflicts often involved casualties in the tens of thousands. Some sieges and battles killed hundreds of thousands. The alien delegation sat in stunned silence. In the entire recorded history of Zephyrian civilization, fewer than 1,000 individuals had died from violence. The idea of hundreds of thousands dying in a single battle was almost incomprehensible. But Dr. Ward was just getting started. She moved on to what humans called the modern period. The images now showed industrial warfare. Humans had learned to mass-produce weapons using the same techniques they used to mass-produce everything else. Armies numbered in the millions. Artillery shells could destroy entire city blocks. World War I was our first truly global conflict, Dr. Ward said, showing a map with battle lines across multiple continents. It lasted 4 years and involved most of the major nations on Earth. We estimate about 17 million military and civilian deaths. Veltar felt physically ill. 17 million deaths was more than the entire population of most galactic species. And Dr. Ward was talking about it as casually as she might discuss the weather. But World War I was just the beginning, she continued. 20 years later we had World War II, which was even larger in scope. The images from the Second World War were horrifying. Entire cities reduced to rubble. Massive bombing campaigns that killed hundreds of thousands of civilians. Dr. Ward explained concepts that had no equivalent in galactic civilization: total war, strategic bombing, submarine warfare, and something called blitzkrieg, lightning war. World War II involved virtually every nation on Earth, Dr. Ward said. The death toll was between 70 and 85 million people, including civilians. Several members of Veltar's team had to excuse themselves from the room. The concept of 85 million war deaths was beyond their ability to process. These numbers represented entire species being wiped out. Dr. Ward seemed to notice their distress for the first time. Are you all right? Would you like me to slow down or take a break? Veltar struggled to find words. Dr. Ward, in our civilization we have had conflicts, but nothing like this scale. Our worst war in recorded history resulted in fewer than 1,000 casualties over several decades. How did your species survive such massive conflicts? Dr. Ward looked surprised. Oh, these were just the major wars. There were also countless smaller conflicts, civil wars, revolutions, and regional disputes happening constantly. But humans are very resilient, and our population kept growing despite the conflicts. She clicked to the next slide, which showed the development of nuclear weapons. After World War II, we developed weapons that could destroy entire cities instantly. This actually reduced large-scale warfare, because the consequences became too terrible to risk. The image showed a mushroom cloud rising over a city. Dr. Ward explained that this single weapon had killed over 100,000 people in seconds. She then showed maps indicating that modern humans possessed thousands of such weapons, each many times more powerful than the first ones. We call it mutually assured destruction, she said. If any major power uses nuclear weapons, their enemies will respond with nuclear weapons, and civilization would likely end. So we've learned to resolve our differences through diplomacy instead. Veltar realized that humans hadn't become peaceful because they had evolved beyond violence. They had become peaceful because they had become so efficient at violence that they frightened themselves into cooperation. The presentation concluded with recent human history. Dr. Ward showed smaller conflicts from the past few decades, describing them as limited wars and police actions. Even these small conflicts involved casualties that would represent major disasters in galactic terms. And that brings us to today. Dr. Ward concluded with a smile. We've learned that cooperation and peaceful negotiation are much more effective than warfare for solving problems. That's why we're so excited to join the galactic community. As the presentation ended, Veltar looked around at his team. Their faces showed the same shock and confusion he felt. They had come expecting to meet a typical developing species ready for gentle guidance into galactic civilization. Instead, they had discovered something unprecedented, a species that had survived and thrived through constant, massive warfare. The humans seemed completely unaware of how disturbing their history was to alien ears. They spoke of wars that killed millions as casually as other species might discuss seasonal weather patterns. Dr. Ward was already preparing to show them human art and literature, apparently not realizing that her presentation had fundamentally changed how the aliens viewed humanity. Veltar excused himself and his team for a brief recess. They needed time to process what they had learned. Outside in the corridor, Kesra spoke in a whisper as if afraid the humans might overhear. "Commander, what kind of species are we dealing with? They speak of warfare like it's a normal part of life." Veltar stared out at the blue planet below. Earth looked so peaceful from space, but now he understood the truth. Humanity hadn't just survived on a death world. They had turned their entire species into something the galaxy had never seen before. A civilization forged in the fires of constant conflict. The third day of meetings took place in a different section of the space station. General Patricia Hayes had requested to use one of the station's secure briefing rooms for her presentation. As Veltar and his team followed her through the corridors, he noticed that the humans seemed more serious today. Their smiles were still friendly, but there was something focused and alert in their manner. General Hayes was different from the other humans they had met. Her movements were precise and economical. Her eyes constantly scanned the room, as if looking for potential threats that might emerge from empty corners. When she spoke, her voice carried quiet authority that made others listen carefully. "Today I want to share our approach to security and defense," she began. "We believe that openness and transparency are essential for building trust between our species." Veltar appreciated this attitude. Most species were reluctant to discuss military matters during first contact. The fact that humans were willing to be so open suggested they had nothing to hide and genuinely wanted peaceful relations. The general activated a display screen that showed a map of Earth. Red dots marked locations around the planet. "These represent our current military installations," she explained. "We maintain forces on every continent and in space around our planet." Kesra looked puzzled. "Why do you need so many military facilities? Is your planet under threat from some external force?" General Hayes paused, as if the question surprised her. "Not currently, but military preparedness is essential for national security. Each nation maintains its own defense forces, and some of us also participate in international alliances. She clicked to the next slide, which showed organizational charts. Let me explain our command structure. At the top level, we have Strategic Command, which oversees nuclear weapons and space-based assets. Below that, we have conventional forces divided into land, sea, and air components. The complexity of human military organization impressed Veltar. Most galactic species had small security forces mainly used for disaster relief and crowd control during emergencies. The humans had created vast hierarchical structures dedicated entirely to warfare. Our tactical doctrine is based on several key principles, General Hayes continued. First is the concept of overwhelming force. When we engage an enemy, we try to bring superior numbers and firepower to bear at the decisive point. She showed videos of military exercises. Hundreds of vehicles moved in coordinated patterns across landscapes. Aircraft flew in tight formations. Ships maneuvered in complex patterns across ocean surfaces. The scale and coordination were unlike anything in galactic civilization. Second is the principle of combined arms warfare, the general said. We coordinate different types of forces to create effects that are greater than the sum of their parts. Infantry, armor, artillery, and air power all work together. The next video showed an exercise where human forces attacked a simulated enemy position. Veltar watched in fascination and growing horror as aircraft bombed targets. Artillery fired from long range. Tanks advanced under cover of smoke, and soldiers moved forward in small groups. The attack was precise, efficient, and utterly devastating. How often do you practice these exercises? Veltar asked. Constantly, General Hayes replied. Every military unit trains regularly to maintain readiness. Our larger exercises happen several times per year and involve hundreds of thousands of personnel. She moved on to show them individual weapon systems. Rifles that could hit targets at distances of several kilometers, artillery that could destroy buildings from dozens of kilometers away, missiles that could travel hundreds of kilometers to strike precise targets. Each weapon was more sophisticated than the last, but sometimes overwhelming force isn't available, General Hayes continued. That's where asymmetric warfare comes in. This was a new concept to Veltar. In galactic civilization, conflicts were usually resolved through negotiation or formal arbitration. The idea of deliberate military strategy was foreign enough, but this seemed to be strategy specifically designed for weaker forces to fight stronger ones. Asymmetric warfare uses unconventional tactics to exploit enemy weaknesses, the general explained. This includes guerrilla warfare, sabotage, and psychological operations. The images now showed small groups of humans moving through forests and urban areas. They wore camouflage clothing and carried lightweight weapons. General Hayes explained how these forces could hide among civilian populations, strike quickly at enemy supply lines, and disappear before conventional forces could respond. Historical examples include our own Revolutionary War, where colonial forces defeated a superior British military through unconventional tactics. More recently, smaller forces in various conflicts have successfully opposed much larger armies using these methods. Kesra's voice was barely audible. You mean humans fight wars by hiding among non-combatants and attacking supply lines? When necessary, General Hayes confirmed. The goal is to make occupation so costly that the enemy withdraws. You target their logistics, their communications, their ability to maintain control. Eventually, even a superior force becomes unsustainable. Veltar felt sick. In galactic civilization, conflicts were always conducted openly, with clear rules about protecting non-combatants. The idea of deliberately blurring the lines between military and civilian targets was horrifying. But General Hayes wasn't finished. She moved on to explain psychological warfare, the deliberate use of propaganda, misinformation, and terror to break enemy morale. She showed examples of leaflets dropped on enemy forces, radio broadcasts designed to create doubt and fear, and deliberate attacks on civilian infrastructure to undermine support for enemy governments. The goal is to win without fighting whenever possible, she said. If you can convince the enemy that resistance is hopeless, they may surrender without major battles. The next section covered electronic warfare and cyber operations. Humans had developed ways to disrupt enemy communications, disable their computers, and steal their secrets through networks. General Hayes explained how modern armies depended on complex electronic systems. making them vulnerable to attack through invisible means. Successful cyber attack can disable an enemy's entire military command structure without firing a single shot, she said with obvious professional pride. Then came the section on Special Operations Forces. General Hayes explained how humans trained elite soldiers to operate behind enemy lines, gathering intelligence and conducting sabotage missions. These forces could infiltrate enemy territory, assassinate key leaders, and create chaos far from the main battle areas. The videos showed humans rappelling from helicopters, moving underwater with breathing equipment, and parachuting from aircraft at night. They could operate in any environment on their planet and were trained to survive alone for extended periods. Our special forces can insert anywhere on the planet within hours, General Hayes said. They're trained to adapt to any situation and complete their missions regardless of opposition. Veltar realized that humans had thought about warfare in ways that no galactic species had ever conceived. They had turned conflict into a science, developing specialized techniques for every possible scenario. Even worse, they seemed to enjoy the intellectual challenge of creating new ways to fight. The presentation's final section covered strategic weapons and doctrine. General Hayes showed them missiles that could travel between continents in less than an hour, submarines that could hide underwater for months before launching devastating attacks, aircraft that were invisible to most detection systems. Our strategic doctrine is based on deterrence through strength, she explained. We maintain the ability to destroy any threat to our civilization, which discourages others from attacking us. She showed them maps of missile trajectories and target lists. The humans had planned exactly how they would destroy every major military installation on their planet if necessary. They had backup plans for their backup plans, alternative strategies for every possible scenario. What if diplomatic solutions are available? Veltar asked desperately. General Hayes smiled. Diplomacy is always preferable, but effective diplomacy requires credible military strength. As one of our leaders once said, speak softly and carry a big stick. When the presentation ended, Veltar sat in stunned silence. The humans had just cheerfully explained how they would conduct total war against any opponent. They had shown weapons that could destroy civilizations and tactics that ignored every rule of civilized conflict. Even more disturbing was their attitude. General Hayes spoke about these horrifying capabilities with the same professional pride that other species might show when discussing their latest artistic achievements or scientific discoveries. The humans weren't ashamed of their military power. They were proud of it. Ambassador Chen, who had been quietly observing, leaned forward. We hope this information helps you understand our defensive capabilities. We want our new galactic neighbors to know that Earth can contribute to collective security. Veltar managed to nod politely, but his mind was reeling. The humans thought they were demonstrating their qualifications for galactic citizenship. Instead, they had revealed themselves to be the most dangerous species anyone had ever encountered. Dr. Elena Vasquez met the alien delegation in the station's science laboratory. She was a small woman with dark hair and bright, curious eyes that seemed to see everything. Behind her, displays showed images of Earth's landscapes, creatures, and geological features. As the head of Earth's xenobiology program, she had spent years preparing for this moment. I'm excited to share what we've learned about evolution and adaptation, she said warmly. Understanding how life develops on different worlds is crucial for building relationships between species. Veltar settled into his chair with mixed feelings. After yesterday's military briefing, he wasn't sure he wanted to learn more about humans. But scientific exchange was supposed to be the peaceful part of first contact. Surely biology would be less disturbing than warfare. Dr. Vasquez activated her first display, showing Earth from space. Our planet is classified as a Class 12 death world, which means it presents extreme challenges to life. But those challenges shaped every aspect of human evolution. The first images showed Earth's geological activity, volcanic eruptions that could cover entire continents in ash, earthquakes that could split the ground for hundreds of kilometers, mountain ranges that grew and crumbled over millions of years. The planet's surface was constantly changing, never stable for long. Geological instability meant that life couldn't depend on consistent environments, Dr. Vasquez explained. Species that survived were those that could adapt quickly to new conditions. She showed them Earth's weather patterns, storms that covered areas larger than entire galactic civilizations, temperature swings that could freeze or boil water within hours, Winds that could destroy anything not anchored to solid ground. Rain that fell so hard it could flood entire river systems. Kesra leaned forward with scientific interest. How did life survive such extreme conditions? Through constant evolutionary pressure, Dr. Vasquez replied. Species either adapted or died out. There was no middle ground. The next section showed Earth's biological history. Dr. Vasquez explained mass extinction events where most life on the planet died within relatively short periods. Asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, climate changes, and other disasters had repeatedly wiped out most species, leaving only the most adaptable survivors. Earth has experienced at least 5 major extinction events, she said. Each time life recovered and diversified, but only the strongest and most flexible species survived to reproduce. Veltar began to understand why Earth was classified as a death world. Most galactic species evolved on stable planets where change happened slowly over millions of years. Earth's life had to evolve rapidly just to survive constant disasters. Now let me show you how this affected human development specifically. Dr. Vasquez continued. The display showed early human ancestors living in African grasslands. Small groups of primitive humans moved across landscapes filled with predators. Lions, leopards, hyenas, and other carnivores that could kill humans easily. Poisonous snakes and insects, diseases that could wipe out entire tribes. Early humans were not the dominant species, Dr. Vasquez explained. We were prey animals for most of our evolution. This shaped our psychology in fundamental ways. She showed them human sensory capabilities. Eyes that could detect movement and recognize patterns instantly. Ears that could identify sounds and determine their direction and distance. Noses that could detect chemical signals warning of danger or disease. Human brains developed to process threats constantly, she said. We're always scanning our environment, looking for anything that might be dangerous. It's automatic and unconscious. The next section covered human physical adaptations. Dr. Vasquez explained persistence hunting, the human ability to chase prey animals for hours or days until they collapsed from exhaustion. No other species on Earth could match human endurance over long distances. Our ancestors could run down horses, antelope, even large predators, she said. We don't run fast, but we never stop running. She showed videos of modern humans running marathons, individuals covering distances that would exhaust most galactic species, and doing it for recreation. Some humans ran for entire days without stopping. But endurance was just the beginning, Dr. Vasquez continued. Humans also developed unprecedented tool-making abilities. The display showed human tool development over time. Simple stone knives became complex machines. Wooden spears became missile weapons. Basic fire became controlled energy. Humans had taken environmental materials and turned them into extensions of their own capabilities. Every other species on Earth uses tools occasionally, she explained. Humans are the only species that makes tools to make better tools. We build on our previous innovations constantly. Veltar was beginning to see a pattern. Humans hadn't just survived their dangerous world. They had learned to control it. They had turned environmental challenges into evolutionary advantages. Dr. Vasquez moved on to social adaptation. She explained how humans formed larger and more complex groups than any other Earth species. Not just families or tribes, but entire civilizations with millions of individuals working together toward common goals. Human cooperation is unprecedented in Earth's history, she said. We can coordinate activities across continents and maintain social relationships with thousands of individuals. But then she showed them the darker side of human social evolution. Competition between groups had driven rapid development of weapons, tactics, and strategies. Humans had learned to work together within their groups by defining other groups as enemies. Tribal warfare was constant throughout human evolution, Dr. Vasquez explained matter-of-factly. Groups that were better at fighting survived and reproduced. Groups that were worse at fighting disappeared. The implications hit Veltar like a physical blow. Humans hadn't developed their military capabilities despite being intelligent. They had become intelligent because of their military capabilities. Warfare had driven human evolution for millions of years. What about peaceful adaptation? Kesra asked hopefully. Surely humans also evolved cooperative behaviors. Oh yes, Dr. Vasquez replied. But our cooperation evolved specifically to make us more effective at competition. We work together within our group so we can compete more successfully against other groups. She showed them examples of human group behavior. Sports teams that train together for years to defeat other teams. corporations that coordinated thousands of employees to compete with other corporations, nations that organized millions of citizens to compete with other nations. Even our peaceful activities are essentially competitive, Dr. Vasquez noted. We turned cooperation into a weapon. The next section covered human psychology in more detail. Dr. Vasquez explained how constant danger had shaped human thinking patterns. Humans were naturally suspicious of strangers, quick to identify potential threats and ready to respond with violence when threatened. We call it the fight-or-flight response, she said. When humans perceive danger, their bodies automatically prepare for physical combat or rapid escape. Heart rate increases, muscles tense, thinking becomes focused on immediate survival. She showed brain scans of humans under stress. Areas associated with logical thinking shut down, while areas associated with survival responses became highly active. Modern humans still carried the psychological patterns developed by millions of years of constant danger. How do you control these responses in civilized society? Veltar asked. We've learned to channel them, Dr. Vasquez replied. Humans need challenge and competition to feel psychologically healthy. When we don't have real dangers to face, we create artificial ones. She showed them human recreational activities: mountain climbing, deep-sea diving, automobile racing, extreme sports that deliberately created dangerous situations for entertainment. Humans seem to seek out the very dangers that other species tried to avoid. We also use competitive activities as substitutes for warfare, she continued. Sports, business competition, academic achievement, artistic recognition, these all satisfy the same psychological drives that once made us effective warriors. The final section of the presentation covered human adaptability in extreme environments. Dr. Vasquez showed images of humans living in Arctic conditions, desert environments, high altitudes, and deep underwater. With relatively simple technology, humans could survive in places that would kill most galactic species within minutes. Humans can adapt to almost any environment, she concluded. We've learned to see every challenge as a problem to be solved through intelligence, cooperation, and tool use. As the presentation ended, Veltar sat in stunned silence. Dr. Vasquez had just explained that humans were the ultimate survivors from the ultimate death world. They had evolved specifically to overcome any obstacle, defeat any enemy, and adapt to any challenge. I hope this helps you understand human capabilities, Dr. Vasquez said with a smile. We're very excited about the challenges and opportunities of joining galactic civilization. Veltar realized with growing horror that she meant it literally. To humans, galactic civilization wasn't a peaceful community to join. It was a new environment to adapt to and dominate. Their entire evolutionary history had prepared them to see every situation as a competition to be won. The humans weren't trying to be threatening. They were simply being honest about what they were. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of receiving Veltar's initial report. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the Great Chamber on Harmony Station, the Council's headquarters. The usual relaxed atmosphere was replaced by tension and urgent whispered conversations. High Counselor Marandai of the Ethereal Collective called the session to order. Her translucent form shimmered with anxiety as she addressed the assembly. We have received disturbing intelligence about the species known as humans. Commander Veltar will present his findings. Veltar stood before the assembled representatives, feeling the weight of responsibility. His words would determine the fate of an entire species, and possibly the future of galactic civilization itself. He had spent the journey home carefully preparing this presentation, knowing that every detail mattered. Honored representatives, he began, I must report that humanity presents an unprecedented situation in galactic history. They are not simply another developing species seeking membership in our community. They are something entirely different. The chamber fell silent. Representatives leaned forward in their seats, sensing the gravity of Veltar's words. Humans evolved on what they classify as a Class 12 death world, he continued. But they did not merely survive their harsh environment. They conquered it completely. In the process, they became something we have never encountered before, a species that evolved specifically for warfare. Counselor Thessara of the Botanical Union raised a tendril in question. Surely you exaggerate, Commander. All species have some capacity for conflict resolution. Veltar activated his display screen, showing images from the human presentations. In their recorded history, humans have engaged in constant warfare involving millions of casualties. Their largest conflict killed over 80 million individuals. This single war involved virtually every nation on their planet. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Several representatives had to be assisted by medical staff as they processed the numbers. The total population of most galactic species was smaller than the casualties from a single human war. Their military doctrine includes concepts unknown to galactic civilization. Veltar continued. Asymmetric warfare, psychological operations, total war, and mutually assured destruction. They have developed weapons capable of destroying entire planets and tactics that deliberately target civilian populations. Representative Colvin of the crystalline hegemony stood up, his form crackling with electrical discharge that indicated extreme agitation. Commander, are you suggesting that these humans are actively planning to attack galactic civilization? No, Veltar replied carefully. That's what makes this situation so complex. The humans appear genuinely interested in peaceful contact and cooperation. They have been completely transparent about their capabilities and seem eager to join our community. But their definition of peaceful is very different from ours. He showed the council excerpts from Dr. Vasquez's presentation on human evolution. Humans evolved through millions of years of constant competition and warfare. Violence is not aberrant behavior for them, it's their natural state. What they call peace is simply the temporary absence of active conflict, while they prepare for the next one. The chamber erupted in alarmed discussions. Representatives clustered in species groups, debating frantically in their native languages. The translator system struggled to keep up with the overlapping conversations. High Counselor Merendai called for order. Commander Veltar, what is your assessment of the immediate threat to galactic civilization? Veltar had dreaded this question. Honestly, I'm not certain there is an immediate threat. The humans seem genuinely interested in peaceful relations, but their capabilities are so far beyond anything we've encountered that we cannot predict their long-term behavior with confidence. He showed the Council technical specifications for human military systems, weapons that could destroy space stations from impossible distances, tactics that could cripple entire civilizations through cyber warfare, strategic doctrines that planned for conflicts spanning multiple star systems. The most disturbing aspect, Veltar continued, is that humans see these capabilities as normal and necessary. They were proud to share their military doctrine with us. They consider overwhelming destructive power to be a prerequisite for peaceful negotiation. Counselor Velnara of the Aquatic Federation raised a question that others had been thinking. Could we maintain peaceful relations through isolation? Perhaps we could limit contact to controlled scientific and cultural exchanges. That might be possible in the short term, Veltar replied. But humans are actively developing space travel capabilities. Their technology is primitive by our standards, but they're advancing rapidly. Within a few decades, they'll have interstellar travel whether we help them or not. The implications hung heavy in the chamber. If the Council rejected humanity, they would eventually face a hostile species with unknown capabilities, spreading across the galaxy without any oversight or guidance. Representative Quintas of the Mechanical Collective offered a different perspective. Perhaps we should consider the potential benefits of human membership. Their military capabilities could provide security against external threats. This suggestion caused another outbreak of alarm discussion. Counselor Thessara's photosynthetic patches flared with distress. You're suggesting we recruit warriors? That's contrary to everything our civilization represents. With respect, Quintos replied. Our peaceful civilization exists because we've never faced serious external threats. If we ever encounter hostile forces from outside our galaxy, human military expertise might be invaluable. Veltar knew he had to address the Council's deepest fears. There's another factor to consider. During my time with humans, I observed that they genuinely value cooperation and peaceful problem-solving. Their destructive capabilities exist alongside remarkable creativity, curiosity, and compassion. He showed images of human art, music, and literature. They're not mindless destroyers. They're incredibly complex beings who have learned to channel their competitive instincts into constructive activities. Their warfare capabilities developed because they needed them to survive, not because they enjoy causing suffering. The Council deliberated for hours. Some species advocated for immediate quarantine. establishing a military perimeter around Earth to prevent human expansion. Others argued for careful integration with extensive monitoring and restrictions. A few suggested that humanity should be given full membership immediately to demonstrate galactic trust and friendship. High Counselor Merendai finally called for preliminary voting on 3 basic approaches: quarantine, limited contact, or full integration. The results showed deep division. Quarantine received support from smaller, more vulnerable species. Limited contact was favored by larger, more established civilizations. Full integration had only a few supporters, mainly species that had experienced their own difficult evolutionary histories. It appears we cannot reach consensus today, Merendai announced. This decision requires more deliberation and consultation with military and scientific experts. Commander Veltar was asked to remain available for additional questioning and to continue monitoring human development. Secret committees were formed to study worst-case scenarios and develop contingency plans. For the first time in galactic history, the Council began serious discussions about military preparedness. Meanwhile, on Earth, human leaders were beginning to realize that their presentations might have been misunderstood. Ambassador Chen sent increasingly concerned messages asking why the alien delegation had left so abruptly. General Hayes reported that human military observers had detected unusual activity around nearby star systems, suggesting increased alien surveillance. Dr. Vasquez proposed organizing a follow-up presentation focusing on human peaceful achievements and cultural values. She suggested inviting alien representatives to visit Earth's surface to see human civilization in its natural environment. But no response came from the Galactic Council. The situation had reached a delicate stalemate. Humanity waited eagerly for news of their galactic membership application, unaware that their honesty about their capabilities had terrified their would-be neighbors. The Galactic Council faced an unprecedented decision about whether to embrace or isolate a species that could reshape galactic civilization forever. In his private quarters, Veltar continued studying human communications and cultural broadcasts. He watched their movies, listened to their music, and read their literature. What he found both reassured and worried him. Humans were capable of tremendous beauty, love, and nobility, but they were also capable of darkness that other species couldn't imagine. The question that kept him awake was simple but profound. Could a species evolved for warfare ever truly become peaceful? Or would humanity's presence in galactic civilization inevitably lead to the return of large-scale conflict to a galaxy that had known peace for millennia? As reports filtered in of human technological advancement and space exploration progress, Veltar realized that time was running out. Soon the decision would be made for them. Humanity would reach the stars whether the galaxy welcomed them or not. The only question was whether they would arrive as friends or as conquerors.